We just kissed, right? And then
Oh, you totally came on to me, by the way. I remember that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the one who kissed you, but then you were like, "Oh, should we like go into the bedroom?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure, let's do it." Hi everyone, this is Polycurious and I am Fernanda, your host, and today is our season finale. But before I start telling you about this episode, I want to ask you a favor. If you haven't yet, can you please make sure to subscribe to the podcast? Now is especially important if you don't want to miss out on our next season because it will only come out in a few months. Also, if you haven't followed us on Instagram yet, we have a really cool page with tons of resources, and you can find us at Polycurious Podcast. Now, on to today's episode. In this conversation, Mariah, the occasional co host of this podcast, and I talk about our relationship. We wanted to put this episode out because we have a very interesting relationship in which we are first and foremost best friends, but we occasionally play, and we'll go into detail about how that evolved. I feel like our relationship just goes to show that there really is a spectrum of how you can relate to people and you can make your relationship whatever you want it to be, even if it doesn't fit into the partner or friend category. On the second part of this episode, you'll also hear an update from us and our journey in our relationships with our partners. I talk about my relationship with Seth and how, in our exploration of non monogamy, or rather my exploration of non monogamy because he's monogamous so far, we have always taken our time and gone step by step. But lately, I kind of took Seth at a pace that was a little too fast for him. So we talk about how we approach that challenge by making sure I prioritize our relationship. Mariah talks about her relationship with James and how their exploration of non monogamy has been a little difficult for them. But she also tells us about the progress they have made by going to therapy and how they're trying to make their relationship work. In this conversation, we wanted to be as open and vulnerable as many polycurious guests have been, and we hope that you learn from our journey as much as you've learned from their journey. If you would like some more context about our relationships or the full gossip, I guess, I recommend you listen to the last two episodes of the first season. On episode 12, I talked to my partner Seth, and on episode 13, I interview Mariah about her relationship with James and her breakup with her previous primary partner. Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover, so we better get started. Here's my conversation with Mariah. So I have the most special guest of them all today. It's not even a guest because she's a host as well. I'm her guest. We're both hosting and
Guesting.
Yeah, Mariah is here with me.
And I'm with you, Fernanda. Oh, fair. Oh, no.
Fair.
It's fair.
Actually, this is a good opportunity to clarify. It's funny because I use Fernanda for the podcast, but then because my friends listen to the podcast, they're starting to call me Fernanda.
Oh,
So now I started to say like, hi, everyone, welcome to Polycurious. I'm Fernanda, Fair for short. So people can correct themselves and call me Fair again because Fernanda is only my professional name. No, no, I'm kidding. It just feels a little weird because it's like, you know, Jonathan and John.
No one of your friends like really called you Fernanda before Polycurious? Like you always just preferred Fair?
There were maybe like a couple, but I've always preferred Fair. Just because that's how everyone has always called me in my family and everything. But anyhow, that's besides the topic. You polycurious listeners can call me however you want. Okay.
So I just want to preface this interview with letting you guys know that we are wearing onesies right now. Matching onesies, actually, and they're unicorns. So
yeah, and we are in this magical place called Costume Closet in Bushwick, which is a dollhouse where you make your costume dreams come true. I mean, please, Mariah, give the proper explanation.
So what I like to tell people is that we have a underground dollhouse experience here in Bushwick. And yeah, we do rentals of festival wear and costumes, but not like the normal costumes that you see at Halloween adventure or whatever. We have very festival-inspired, bunky vibe type of costumes. So yeah, if you guys ever want to come by and play dress up. Yeah, it's been a really wonderful new experience. If you listen to the Bushwick Daily like bonus episode from season 1, I kind of tell a little bit about it, but that's when I really started it. And yeah, it's just been growing since.
That's why you've been a little absent from the podcast. Not completely, because you've been helping out and we've had some interviews, but that's why for the past couple of episodes we haven't heard from you, because you are driving with your new venture. So basically today we just wanted to chat about our relationship, because a lot of the guests and even the listeners have been really open to us about their journeys, but we haven't really talked about our story yet. So I feel like for those of you who have gotten closer to us through the podcast will probably be interesting, and also for people who know us. And I don't know if you've gotten this asked, but what's up with you and Fair? What's up with you and Mariah? So
yes, I have, definitely. Or like, it's funny because people used to ask, well, when I was dating Logan, assume that you were our girlfriend or that we were dating. And I mean, definitely at that time it wasn't. And we were like, no, we're just friends.
Yeah, but we do have a story around that as well. So so maybe let's start with that, actually. Where did we meet?
So we met first at a play party.
Exactly, which was my first play party ever.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember that.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you that, but yeah, it was the first time I went to a play party.
Oh, but we met first at the pregame.
We met at the pregame,
yeah,
and I didn't see you, or I don't remember. But yeah, we met at a pregame, and I just remember seeing you with your cat suit that then I wore later on. That's still probably floating around in this closet.
It definitely is.
It's such a good one, but like Catwoman suit. And I just remember being like, oh, she's so pretty. Like, she's so pretty and so hot and like so charming. But like, it was like 2 seconds, like, hi, this is Mariah, this is Fair. Whatever. That's
well,
it.
I remember what you were wearing too. Wait, you were wearing the feathers, right? That you just wore recently.
I was wearing the feathers that I just wore recently.
And I remember the story you told me, and this was like the first conversation we had, basically, because I was like, "Oh, I love your feathers."
Oh my god, so many things are coming out. I didn't remember this.
This is also 5 years ago.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, you were wearing the feathers. I don't remember what character you were, or you were just, because it was superheroes. Superheroes and villains, I think.
I was just on the villain side. I think I was an undefined feathery birdie villain.
So, oh yeah, so it had to do with your roommate, I think at the time, or your ex-roommate had left it behind or lost it. My memory's really bad.
The story is better than that, actually. Also a little embarrassing, but here it goes. I'll put it out there. So it was like someone from my master's. He was just a friend, but there had been some flirtation. But we went out one night, and then I just like fell asleep. So we actually never had sex or anything, but I stayed at his place. Woke up the next morning, and then I don't know why I was looking into his closet and I saw it.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to a play party and I need an outfit. Can I borrow this? And he's like, yeah, I think that was like, maybe it was a roommate. In my head, it was like probably a girl that he had like slept with or something. That's what went through my head. But actually, now that you say it, like probably I just made that up, and it was probably
it was a justification. The other girl he's sleeping with, I'll just take this.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's worse if I took it from his roommate, right? Anyhow, I never gave it back. Yes, he moved away, and then it just stayed with me forever. Would have probably given it back if he hadn't moved, and I had the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't ask for it back, so
yeah,
and it's great. It's a great piece.
I just used it, like I just wore it like 2 weeks ago or something. Okay. Yeah. So anyhow, that was our first conversation, and that was it. We didn't see each other at the party. So when I met Mariah, I also met Logan, which was her partner at the time. And Logan stayed in touch with me, and he invited me to your guys' birthday.
And I remember it being a little weird for me, for sure. Like, I always liked you, but it was just like our birthday weekend, or because Logan and I shared the same birthday week. So we had like a joint birthday party at, what is that called? Black Flamingo?
Yeah.
Is it Black Flamingo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was kind of weird that I just showed up for your birthday without really knowing you, but also we didn't really chat much. I think it was later on that, yeah, Logan invited me to this like neon I feel party.
Right.
And
we hosted the pregame at mine.
Yeah,
or at ours.
The beginnings of the costume closet. She was already glamming everyone up and having people over. So yeah, so after that party, I wanted to make dinner for you guys because Logan had paid for my ticket for the party. So like as a thank you, I wanted to like make dinner. And like this whole time, I mean, now that I think back at it, I'm like, this is pretty obvious, right? Like we met at a play party. Of course, they or he are courting me or whatever, you know? Like,
well, we weren't really though, to be honest. Like that night, we were both unsure of what that meant because we're like, does she just want to come over and cook dinner? Like, is this a friend thing? Is she interested in us? Like, because we were just stepping into this world at that time too. So like had no idea what your intentions were. We didn't talk about them. We were just like, yeah, let's do dinner. Let's have this girl over to our house. We also weren't used to doing things like that before we met this community, really, you know? So, yeah, we weren't really trying to court you.
Oh, okay, great. Then I was reading things right. I was just like, they're nice people and they, invited me to this nice party. I want to say thank you. I'm going to go and cook for them. And then it was just so easy to talk to you. Like immediately, I just felt so comfortable and I was making dinner and we like drank wine. And then we had this moment, which later I come to find out that it was a little awkward or uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was jealous for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I mean, understandably, I feel like I would have felt the same way.
Yeah, I think it was after dinner. So you had cooked and we were like helping cook and we had a really lovely dinner. And then afterwards, like Logan had offered you a massage, right? But he ended up breaking out like the massage table and you guys are like off getting massages with each other in the bedroom. And I was like out in the kitchen, just like cleaning all the dishes and everything. And I just remember being not angry at you or annoyed at you or like upset. I was a little jealous because I was like feeling like Logan was giving someone else attention that I wanted. And, but then, yeah, I was just kind of angry at him because I was like, I'm out here cleaning the dishes.
Oh, no. Again, I would have felt the same way. For me, it was just like, I can't remember how it happened. Of course, like I'm sure that I said yes to the massage because
if you know Fair, she loves her massages.
Exactly. So I'm sure that I had to do with it. But like I think even though for us that night was like, oh, like whatever, we're just friends. I think he was actually trying maybe to get things going. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, like nothing ever happened between us three or between me and Logan. And actually, like, we just transitioned into friendship for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember this was Burlesquerade. I think it was
the after party.
It was 2019. So this is like 2 years after our friendship. At the after party, I don't even know how, but we were like talking and then you confessed that you had a crush on me at the beginning of our relationship, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I always had like a little crush on you, especially from the beginning. Like even though I got like jealous at one time or whatever, like we had grown such a beautiful friendship in between that time and like just getting to know you. And I also had never like had crushes on girls before, really. And, stepping into this world for me was also stepping into really accepting me wanting to explore potential like relationships or hooking up with women and all of that. So I remember feeling very like predatorial in a way. I know now that that's not what it was and definitely not how I act ever. But
No, not at all. I was so surprised when you told me.
yeah. And because I always do believe in friends first. Like that's, if a relationship changes, that doesn't mean that friendship shouldn't exist anymore. And if one party is not as interested, then that also doesn't mean that you can't be friends, So, yeah, so I was always happy being platonic with you. But yeah, I remember telling you that like I had a little crush on you and I didn't know how to tell you. And that I remember telling you like I also felt awkward like hugging you or touching you because I didn't know like how to handle that or if I was being like predatorial or things like that. Or like if you felt like I wasn't being platonic when you wanted that. So yeah, that was a hard conversation or like hard for me to say for sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciated your honesty after 2 years. No. No, I was just surprised, and I remember being like, I mean, I think you're gorgeous. This actually reminds me of our episode with queer dating coach Ariella. I don't know what number, but this season, when she says, you shouldn't ask people, are you gay? You should ask people, are you into me? Right?
Right.
Because at that point, I had explored with women a little bit, but just barely, like at play parties or whatever.
Well, and I remember you telling me previously that you were not like bi necessarily, like that you would maybe hook up with a girl, but like it wasn't something that like really interested you at the time. Like you weren't really exploring it as much rather than just like if it happened in a threesome or something like that.
Yeah, and I still feel somewhat that way. Not completely. I've had like moments with women only that have been good, but I prefer it when there's a man around, which, is kind of sad in a way because it's a reflection of, just our sexual culture, like our culture around like threesomes and all of that. But I mean, I think also just the fact that I'm more hetero than gay.
Yeah. I also like, in addition to the whole society thing, I think there is just something about like penetration. I know that there's toys and everything too, but like I think that there is something about that, like, I mean, that I enjoy and I like to have a man around. It's like that penetration aspect.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more like the force, the maybe the aggressiveness or something, because I like penetration, but it's not my favorite thing that you can do.
Right.
But even if it's just like fingering or whatever, some strength is needed and some aggressiveness or whatever. I'm into that. Anyhow. Anyhow, so yeah, so when you told me that, I was like, oh, well, you're gorgeous, and yes, I'm not bisexual, but I'm interested in exploring women, and I was almost like, oh, did I miss my chance? Or like at least I thought that. But then at that point we had already established our friendship, and then this was was it during the pandemic? No, it was before the pandemic. Yeah, I think
what?
When we hooked up for the first time, I had been watching Euphoria. So I guess I had the the lesbian sex in my mind. And then, I mean, I didn't expect it to happen though. I think we were just drinking. Were we watching Euphoria? I don't think so. We were just drinking at my place. I don't know why Seth wasn't around.
He was out of town, I think, that weekend or something.
Yeah, and we just kissed, right? And then...
Oh, you totally came on to me, by the way. I remember that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the one who kissed you, but then you were like, oh, should we like go into the bedroom? And I'm like, okay, sure, let's do it. Yeah, and that was kind of fun,
Yeah.
I remember it like being like, how am I gonna tell this to Seth? Like, not that, oh, and you were worried that Seth was gonna have an issue with her. You were
Yeah.
really worried. Like, Seth didn't have an issue at all. He was just like surprised, like, okay, interesting. And I'm like, yeah, but what do you think? And I think he was like, well, that's just like not the way I relate to my friends. But yeah, I mean, I think at that point we were both very new in our exploration with women, even though it wasn't that long ago. It was maybe like 3 years ago. But yeah, then after that, again, like months, maybe a year passed.
It was definitely a long time in between. Like we hadn't hooked up again. It was definitely here. And I remember it was while I was dating James. And James was like, oh, you totally have a crush on Fair. And like, we were talking about that. And I was like, I mean, I love Fair and like we have hooked up, but I wasn't in the crushing phase anymore because I just like, I've grown to love you,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, we hang out all the time. Like, we're not going to hook up. Or I said, we might, but I highly doubt it because it always catches me by surprise when it happens. But yeah, and then we were here, and I remember, I think it just like, it wasn't as much. But yeah, it definitely happened here. I remember that.
After that, we finally had a threesome because we had talked about having a threesome for a while.
And you tried so hard to make it happen. And I was like, I mean, I'm busy, or like I always had something going on.
Yeah. And then on your birthday, which, I mean, that whole party was like a surprise for me because I was coming from another party and I was tired. And I remember I was in the car with a friend and I told him, I'm just gonna say hi and like I'm gonna go. Next thing I know, I don't even know how, but it's like 9 a.m. in the morning and I'm still there and we're like all dancing in the basement. I feel like your party had two parties, like
it totally
like
did.
when everyone was there and then when everyone left and the smaller group was there and then that's when the real party started. But I remember that night James kissed me and I was like, oh, does Felicia know about this, or like is this okay with her or whatever? And he said like, yes, like we've talked about this or something. And I was like, okay, well, sure. Yeah. And I mean, like, I was never super attracted to James, but I was like, oh, I've been wanting a threesome with Felicia for a while. I'm horny right now. This kiss is feeling good. Why not? Sure. But then it was like so late. And I mean, and I don't know what the conversation was on your side, like, or how he approached it with you.
It was more of just like a generic, like that night and like that time of our relationship, I was okay with him like kissing other women. And I think he actually did come up to me, was like, I just kissed Fair, is that okay? Like it was already okay, but I think that like then he felt guilty about it a little bit and was like, oh gosh, did I just do something wrong? And like came to find me and was like, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it was cute.
Yeah, and then but then it was like so late and we were like, okay, are we actually doing this? And I remember being like, guys, I do want to have sex with you, but like I'm so tired, so if we're going to do it, let's just do it now. But we pushed through.
We did.
And it was just fun. It was really fun. It was mostly you and I and you and James that time. Like it was play more than, full on penetration, for me at least.
It was just very safe and like cozy and comfortable because we were all so tired. Like it was the end of a rager.
Yeah, but it was cute because it was so easy for you to not be jealous.
Yeah.
I was being careful, but I also knew that you felt really safe with me. Obviously, I would never.
Well, and I know that you wouldn't ever do anything to harm me intentionally, too. And then if something was ever uncomfortable between us, we would just talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that solves everything.
Yeah. So it was your 30th birthday, your first threesome.
Yes. I just remember like the week after I was just on cloud 9 about it too. And I was just like, I had my first threesome. I mean, I've been in I always have to like preface people with, I mean, I've been in orgies before, but I've never been in a threesome. And that was just really exciting for me because it does feel a lot more intimate to me. And I think because it created such like a safe space that then opened the door for me and James to have like a threesome with someone else later and like be able to kind of explore and play with other people that I didn't know as well. I think that experience allowed me to then open up to more.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. It was fun. And also just the fact that it was like spontaneous. And obviously, Seth wasn't that happy about it because, normally I give him a heads up. And this time I couldn't because I didn't know it was going to happen.
It
But
tends to be our MO.
yeah, he was eventually okay with what happened once we talked about it. He would just appreciate it if I gave him a heads up when I have sex with someone. So that was also a lesson for me to make sure that even if I think there might be a somewhat spontaneous situation, I kind of tell Seth like, "Oh, this might happen," or maybe before I go and do it, checking with him or whatever. Of course, although of course I wasn't gonna text him at 9 a.m. in the morning. Hey, babe. I knew he was fine with you and I hooking up, and I knew that he wouldn't feel threatened by James or anything. So that's also why I really didn't think that it would be an issue, but it was a lesson for me. So yeah, I guess all of this to say that I guess our relationship is very unique and fluid and kind of, yeah, mostly friends who occasionally hook up for fun. And the times we've had sex, or like not even had sex but like played, the times that we've played are like maybe 5 or something in our 5-year relationship. So maybe it's like a once a year kind of thing. Although I guess we had another like couple of experiences not too long ago, I guess a few months ago, but they were again after a festival when like the sexual energy is high, and we might hook up again, we might not, but if we do, it would probably be just the two of us, because even though I did enjoy the experience we had with James, I feel like at this point you guys are going through your own process, and I was always more focused on you anyway, so I don't feel like I need or necessarily want to get involved in your dynamic at this point. And we'll get to talk about, what your situation is right now at some point today. But yeah, all of this to say that, relationships it's hard to put them in a box.
Yeah.
And ours is just kind of what it is. And I mean, obviously we have like such a beautiful friendship, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, same. I mean, I was just telling you yesterday, like how much I appreciate you as a friend, because like you are just always there for me, and you always like have my best interest in mind. And I really appreciate you like sometimes telling me things that are hard to hear, and that's what like a real friend does. And even still, like I feel so comfortable and safe to talk to you and tell you what's going on in my life. And I just appreciate you always making that space for me.
Thank you, love. Yeah, of course. And yeah, you do the same for me. I feel like, again, ever since I met you, I just felt so comfortable, and I felt like I could tell you anything.
And we had our soul sister trip.
All right, we did mushrooms. Hey, girl, I've like taken you in a lot of adventures.
Yes,
like,
you have. Yes,
first
you have.
threesome, first mushroom trip, first Burning Man.
Yes. See, I just feel so safe with you.
So yeah, that we had a mushroom trip at some point in our friendship, and we realized we were soul sisters.
And that's when our real friendship started, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like you are always listening to what I have to say, caring for me, and just like always down for adventures of all types, whether it's sexual or whether it's like
go and get a smoothie.
Yeah, or putting our onesies on and walking around the forest, or
Yes.
crafting.
I wish we had the poem. I could read it to you.
Oh yeah, but I can add it. We can add it. And maybe you can recite it.
Yeah,
Like I'll
totally.
just have you record it or something.
Perfect.
Yeah, my birthday weekend was a couple of weeks ago, and we did a poem exchange. And
It was such a beautiful uh, activity to do on a getaway weekend or just like at a gathering of any sort. I highly recommend it, but continue.
yeah, it's basically a poem exchange. I based it on a tradition called Sinterklaas, which is from the Netherlands, and totally culturally appropriated it because I just made it my own. But I just wanted to do the poem exchange because I've done it with my family and I wanted to do it with my friends. We were in this farmhouse, 15 people, and decorated the poems, and then we all read them out loud for one another. Each person got
A random, and I got fair.
oh yeah, and Mariah got me. So here's a poem.
Two soul sisters on an adventure. We always find ways to play, whether it's frolicking in the woods or making mermaids on crafting day. Together, we are changing the world, one polycurious person at a time. And for me, you've changed my life by supporting me and being so kind. When us shorties are wandering around, I am mistaken as your clone, which is one of the greatest compliments. You're my rock and I'm your gemstone.
So yeah, so that encapsulates our relationship, especially that last part. You are my rock, and I'm your gemstone. I was melting. I was crying. Um, but yeah, it's like so true. I feel like you always help me with my outfits or with whatever I need, and you're also my rock. But I'm your rock in the way that you spoke about before.
Yeah, definitely.
Being there for you. So it was really touching.
And I'm definitely your gemstone.
Yeah. So good. The other part of the episode, we just wanted to kind of update you of where we're at. Where am I? So I feel like in my journey with non-monogamy, what often happens to me is that I meet someone and I get really excited, and then after a few dates I kind of get a little disillusioned, or the infatuation kind of comes down. So after that happened a few times, I decided to keep things very casual and very open, and zero attachment. And that's kind of the approach that I've taken. And then, yeah, I recently went on a trip to Peru a month ago, and I drank ayahuasca, which, for those of you who might not know, is a plant medicine, very strong, and a lot of indigenous cultures use it for therapeutic purposes. And it's kind of picking up in the West, and people are also doing it here. I went all the way to Peru, but there's ayahuasca retreats all around. I wouldn't just recommend it to anyone. I think that it's very important to do your research. And I think especially if you have some history of like psychosis or other types of like mental illness, is not recommended. But for me, even though it wasn't at all the experience that I thought it would be, because a lot of people get a lot of visuals and have sort of like an out of body kind of other dimension experience. For me, it was very much in the room, but I just had a lot of realizations, and I kind of came back thinking like, okay, I'm gonna clear my plate from dating, even though I hadn't been dating that much, because I don't know, just life gets in the way. But it was like roughly like maybe once every couple of weeks. So after I came back, I was like, okay, I think that I'm ready to kind of take it easy. But then there was someone that I kind of had a little crush on, and he kind of like came around right when I was ready to stop seeing other people, or like at least take a little break from that and just focus on myself. Not for any particular reason that there was anything wrong with like my dating life or whatever, but it just felt like it was consuming a lot of my time, like planning dates or planning seeing people or texting with people or just mental space that I felt like, unless it was like really worth it, I needed to save that time. But then this person kind of came around, and then we've been seeing each other, and it's been really nice. Also, more generally, in terms of like the lessons that I've learned, and this is also something that I've mentioned before, I think also on Ariela's episode with the queer dating coach. I made this like 4-date rule, which because I get really excited about people, and then I start getting worried. Oh, what if like I want to go on a trip with them and said it's not okay with it, or like whatever. And then like next day,
Well, it was like you would go on like another date with them or something and then realize like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. Or like I'm not really that into them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a normal, first excitement when you meet someone. Even if I continue seeing those people, the infatuation or the excitement is just not the same. So then it switches to a friends with benefits type of situation if I
Right.
continue seeing them, or I might not continue seeing them.
Yeah. And also I think a lot of times when you and like me in the past too, and I think a lot of people in our community is like we're going to a party and it's like highly active or, somewhat sexy. There's so many things that are at play, possibly on Molly,
Yeah.
whatever, that just like play into infatuation. Yeah. So it makes sense that magic kind of dies off.
Of course, and that's another thing that I've learned. Like, if I meet someone at a party, already the atmosphere is gonna make it different. If I'm at a party and I'm on drugs, then I can't really take seriously my feelings for people. I can enjoy them and I can all of those things. So I came up with that rule for myself, the 4th-date rule. I won't take myself too seriously and my feelings with people. It doesn't mean that after the 4th day I decide if I continue seeing them or not. It just means that
you've given yourself some time to like actually get to know someone a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Before I like believe that whatever feelings I'm having for that person are based on that person and not based on my idealized image of that person, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, with this person I'm seeing, we've already had a few dates. I'd say probably 6 or 7 or something like that. My bubble hasn't burst, and I'm still very much into him. And yeah, I wonder if this is going to be different. But again, I say this every single like well, I've stopped, but I mean, you've seen me like Mariah, you've seen me like I called Mariah like, oh my god, I met this guy and blah 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 and this and that, blah 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 blah. And then a couple of weeks later I'm just like, actually no, I don't know, I just don't feel the same way. Or
But it's funny too because like a lot of times too you're like, I wonder if he likes me the same way or like
yeah, no, I'm like, I think that this time is different. Like, how many times I've been like, I think that this time is different, So like so many times, but I've stopped because I've learned, and like, so I'm like, I've been very careful to not take my feelings too seriously, to not say like maybe this time will be different, but this time, but maybe this time will be different, So
at least you're saying maybe, not that you think it is.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
Yeah, maybe this time, exactly. So maybe this time will be different.
It always can be different. And where is Seth at right now too? Maybe as far as like what he's feeling about your exploration and
yeah, it's been interesting because I think that for a while I wasn't really dating, or if I dated, it was like different people once a month, something like that. And then all of a sudden, I've been seeing this new person twice a week or so. And I think that it was quite a bit for Seth. And I could tell, but I would always check in with him. Hey, is it okay if this person joins? Because a lot of these hangouts haven't been just one-on-one. They've been in group settings. And Seth would always say, yes, of course, it's fine. So I just took that by face value, but at the same time, I realized that it was maybe a bit much for him because there was especially one weekend where I kind of was out a lot with this other person, and it just happened to be that Seth was home that whole weekend, and it just felt imbalanced, not just for him but for me as well. But we hadn't really talked about that until recently when I was again checking in with him, and then he expressed that I had kind of taken him to a rhythm that was too fast to what he's used to, which I totally understand because, again, I went from dating once a month to seeing this person twice a week. So I apologized and immediately recognized that I hadn't been prioritizing my relationship with Seth as much. I was like, I didn't fully realize because you always said it was fine. And what Seth expressed was that he's not going to tell me what to do, which I found really admirable. Like, even if he's not 100% comfortable, he wants me to do what I want to do. He was like, you can make your own decisions and it's on you to prioritize our relationship. I'm not going to tell you. If you ask me, like, I asked him if I could have breakfast with this person after I had already spent all weekend with him. And Seth was like, yeah, of course. But I was home pretty late, and in my head, if Seth says it's fine, then it's fine. But actually, I have to be the one who needs to be like, okay, no, I've left him all weekend. It's time to go home, and I have to make those decisions. And I'm not saying this is every relationship because other relationships have that partner who tells you, okay, this is enough. But it just kind of put in perspective the type of relationship I have, in which he trusts me to make my own decisions and I just have to make the best decisions. So the changes are simply taking a step back and taking it slower. Seth is not telling me I cannot see this person. He's just telling me this has been too much too fast and I need you to step back for a little bit until we kind of recalibrate. But even just having that conversation, although I felt guilty because I felt like I hadn't been honoring my relationship, I also felt really proud of my relationship with Seth because we have really great communication and I can really tell that we look out for one another, and it was a really quick and easy conversation, and it's a really quick and easy fix. Okay, I won't see this person as much for a little bit and until we recalibrate. So that's what I've been doing, kind of stepping back a little bit from that.
I love the word recalibration. That's so important because it's always changing. And I really do respect, where both of you stand, really. But on Seth's side, because I'm just hearing this again from you, but like, I really do appreciate how he is still allowing your freedom, but also, by saying that you can make your own decisions, like this is also on you to make that decision. But this is how I'm feeling right now, and I need more prioritization from you. That's hard for a lot of people to do. And I think that, again, it just shows that your relationship, it's super compatible because you can communicate in that way.
Yeah, and it just shows that Seth is just incredible. Like, there's very few people who are able to get that balance right. So listeners, go and listen to our episode with Seth. Honestly, the reason why I put that episode out there is because I want more Seths in the world. So I'll link all of the episodes mentioned in the show notes, by the way.
It's a really great one, by the way. I really loved that episode so much.
Oh, thank you.
Just like coming from him too, and just really hearing his side of the story, because I
Yeah.
always hear it through you.
Yeah.
And that intimate conversation that you had with each other was just like really wonderful for me to hear. And I just think that, I'm really proud of Seth too, of how he's handled, the differences in your relationship and how you guys see polyamory or non-monogamy,
I know. Seth is so great. I'm constantly like impressed by him and his ability to be selfless and to really care for me and for what I want, and also to ask for what he wants, because I feel like some people might think that he's just like letting me do whatever I want to do and that's it. But he does tell me when he wants something or when he needs something. He does step up and is like, no, babe, I want you to prioritize me in this way or whatever it is.
And he's really good at setting fair boundaries too. Like, one of my favorites that he said during that episode was that he needs a certain amount of time to process things or like a new change in your relationship. So, whether it is like, oh, you can go out once a week or whatever the rule was at the time. And I need like a month to adjust to this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's try this thing for a while. And then once I get comfortable, then we can move on to the other step and really giving himself time to get there.
And he makes those requests too. Like, he's like, this is what I need right now. This is what I am comfortable with. And it is pushing me a little bit, but I'm comfortable with this push.
Yeah. It's always a conversation. But what has also been interesting for me, and I guess why I wanted to talk about this in the podcast, is because, right, the podcast is called Polycurious, right? And it's called Polycurious because I'm curious about polyamory, right? Even though I'm non-monogamous, I don't consider myself polyamorous, but this is the most serious thing that I've had, or the most frequent thing that I've had, that it's the closest I've been to polyamory. And I'm already realizing how difficult it is to have two boyfriends, with which I've always said that that's not what I want. Seeing two people every week, more than once a week, that's a lot. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to do it. We'll see. We'll feel it out. Maybe once a week is what works, or
The right
maybe,
recipe.
or maybe things with this person I'm seeing will fizzle out. We really never know what's gonna happen, but it's been very interesting for me to realize how easy and complicated it can be at the same time.
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, I mean, you had that when you were dating Logan and James at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Easy and complicated. It was easy. I don't know. It was easy to fall for James.
But Logan wasn't asking, and that was the
And it
issue,
was
and that's also why you ended up
but
breaking
it was
up.
difficult. Yeah, it was difficult in that way where he was not able to tell me what his needs were in a healthy way. So I was just gallivanting around doing whatever I wanted, feeling like I could literally do whatever I wanted. And that freedom felt great. But it also did leave some sort of like emptiness to me in our relationship, of feeling like there was a disconnect between my primary and myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, it's, at least in the little I've experienced, it's just very hard to give the proper attention to more than one person. I know a lot of people do it successfully. I'm not saying you can't. And if you're polyamorous and have 2, 3, 4 partners, I admire you for that.
Yeah.
I'm just finding it personally, from a time and energy perspective, difficult. Yeah, so that's me. So why don't you tell us, Mariah, where you're at in your journey?
Yeah. So James and I are in a very different place. We have actually been struggling quite a bit. And, where we are currently as far as our non-monogamous journey is, we consider ourselves monogamish. I have the ability to flirt and date other women. I can date them on my own. I haven't really taken advantage of that because I'm not necessarily in the mood for that right now, because I am focusing so much on the relationship and making that better. But also, costume closet is my baby and it requires a lot of attention. So, but yeah, so we're still kind of open to possibilities, and eventually I think that we would like to get to a place where we feel like we could explore a relationship with someone else, another woman, but I'm not comfortable with him dating someone on his own.
Right, but also he is not comfortable with you dating other people.
Oh, he's comfortable with me dating women. He's not comfortable with me dating men. I have agreed to no longer sleep with or date men. And the transition from that has been fine. I agreed to that from the very beginning. But even still, it has caused a lot of issues because I think that James doesn't see that is an actual transition that's able to happen. I think he's constantly worried that I'm going to want that again one day.
And when you mean the transition, is the transition from being polyamorous or non-monogamous more generally to being monogamous with him, with the exception of women. But I mean, right now you're not doing that. So right now you're monogamous. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but again, we like go to parties and like sometimes we make out with women and I will or he will or the three of us will, or whatever. Like that happened at your birthday weekend. I mean, your birthday weekend was a really nice, safe space for us to really kind of get into that realm, because even that night, I remember, getting massaged by another guy there, and like that was completely fine. And in normal cases, like it is much more of a tense issue when things like that come up. It's been difficult, really. And it's been difficult from the start. Once we started falling in love with each other, I think that's when James started feeling a lot of jealousy, anger, and distrust. I think he has a hard time trusting that I can make the right decision in a lot of ways. And that's really affected our relationship even more as it's gone on, because it's a recurring issue that we've been having. I think the biggest hurdle that we have right now is the view of platonic relationships, because although I have agreed that I would not have sexual or romantic relationships with men, I still find it very important to have meaningful relationships, friendships with men as well. And I've really had to fight for the relationships that I currently have in my life. Some of my best friends are guys, and I had to fight to keep it that way,
Right, because James wouldn't be comfortable sometimes with you having platonic or friend relationships with them, because he would think that they were more than that there was some sexual interest in either side.
Yeah, and I can understand that fear. I think it's a very common thing. I think we talk about jealousy a lot on this podcast, that a lot of people experience it. But I think the biggest issue is the trust that you have in a partner, of being able to be like, okay, she's saying it's platonic. It's just platonic. I am very much a person that, again, like I said earlier, friends first. And that's always the case with me. And so I don't expect anything. I don't look for anything of that nature. And when I decide that, okay, this is no longer a thing, I can just switch. And even someone that I previously may have been interested in, I can have a platonic relationship. So he has a hard time understanding that or believing that to be true.
Yeah, and I think that what has also made it hard for you is that at some point it doesn't really depend on you, because you are just having a conversation with a guy, and if in the past you had a fling with the guy, or the guy likes you, which are two things that you cannot control at this very moment, that can be an issue with James, even if you don't do anything. And of course, if like there's a massage, something like that is normally an issue. I'm glad that it wasn't an issue during my birthday, but I also kind of had to talk to James before my birthday, because I knew there was going to be a lot of like intimate settings. We were like wearing comfy, sexy clothes and had a cuddle puddle. And as you mentioned, like you guys were making out with a friend and there were massages and all of that. And I knew that normally when those situations happen in other settings, sometimes that can be an issue. So I kind of like talked to James and I was like, listen, I want to make sure that we're only bringing good vibes to the birthday weekend, which I'm glad that I had that conversation with him, because I also felt like I needed to say something, because we hadn't really talked about how I felt about his behavior. And it makes me feel like he's restricting you, even though you are not crossing any boundaries. You are being respectful, you are being monogamous, you are like not doing the things that would merit a reaction, like the reactions that he has sometimes. And I know that he knows this, which is, I'm sure that you'll talk about this. Like, I know that he wishes that he would react differently and that he's working on it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I can be comfortable with that.
Well, I think it's also about you creating a safe space. And I'm glad you did it too, because I feel like it did affect the way that he kind of approached the weekend and had to kind of keep checking in with himself. But yeah, I think on the lines of kind of what you were saying about the restrictions and all of that, I think that's one of my biggest fears right now. And especially, we have people all the time that say that they can't be on polycurious because they're not in a great place in their relationship right now, and they don't want to necessarily like bring that in. And that's definitely where we're at. But we are trying, and we're gonna keep trying. But yeah, I think one of my biggest fears right now is that tightness of restrictions, those boundaries continuously getting smaller, is not something that I want. I've agreed to the boundaries we put in place, and those don't seem to be enough sometimes. And that's why I'm worried that if I continue to let them get smaller, that I'm going to not be my normal self anymore. I'm still learning in the process as well, and I'm not perfect, but I think that we both just have a lot of work to do in this realm.
Right, because that's another thing for context for the listeners. You had a partner when you started dating James. So when you started dating James, there was no boundary of you not being able to see other people.
Yeah.
That boundary came early in your relationship with him, actually, before you even broke up with Logan. You guys decided that you wouldn't see other people.
Right.
Because
Other men.
As you were like establishing the basis of your relationship. But then ever since, you had some experiences with women. You had someone that you were seeing more regularly that ended partly because of what we're talking about, right? So why don't you tell us about that?
Right. So, I mean, I guess that's why I say I'm not necessarily comfortable with us exploring even a relationship with women, is because I do feel like that third person is important and that we have to be considerate of their wants and needs. And yeah, the situation that happened was this girl that we had met, and her and I hit it off right away. And it was really kind of the first time that I felt connected in a more romantic way. And we saw her at a party again, and we were like kind of attached to the hip pretty much the entire party. And yeah, we ended up having a date after that. And it was wonderful. I had butterflies. Like it was a whole thing that I had not experienced. And we had
having a date with James as well.
Oh, with James as well, yes. And so this is the first date that I've had with another partner and another person. We had dinner first. We went back to James's place, which is always like the best mood ever. And we had an amazing threesome, and we connected a lot after that too and texted back and forth. But the start to the end, I guess, was when James went to Elements, which is a festival nearby. And I decided to stay back to work on Costume Closet because I was just kicking it off. Yeah, and I was feeling a little weird about it because, we weren't going to have a lot of communication during. I knew that he was going to be seeing this girl there as well, which we were trying to develop a relationship. We were trying to date, so I was open to it. But, it was a little weird for me. So they went, and James came back, and he was actually really proud of himself because I guess they had spent some time together. They had a lovely time. But then afterwards, she had met someone there that she really connected with and spent more time with. And James kind of accidentally, found them after they had hooked up. And he was just glad that he was able to like support them and kind of be there and be present and not make a big deal out of it. But then when he came back and we kind of talked about it, it was fine. But then he ended up finding out that me and this guy that she was interested in actually knew each other and that we had been talking over Instagram or whatever, which to me, it was nothing. We were just catching up after not.
Just friends.
Yeah, we were just friends. Yeah. He was upset to find out that we were having a conversation. I think he just thought that, and he always does, of these texting or conversations or whatever, like that it means that we're flirting or I'm not sure because I don't think that way. So it's very hard for me to like put a pin on it, but
he feels uncomfortable with you texting other men.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he just, in his mind, he thinks it means something different than it does. I don't think that he necessarily believes that platonic relationships between men and women can exist. So it's really hard for me when we talk about these kind of things because it is just friends to me, and unfortunately he doesn't see it from that place, but he ended up blowing up on me about it. And that really turned me off from being able to be okay with not just this particular girl, but more about having outside relationships or outside experiences, because I felt like I was being punished for something that I did nothing wrong, So we did end up having like a couple instances after that were still lovely, but I definitely kind of pushed away from that and let that fizzle out naturally. I also kind of blamed it on being busy, which I also was. So there was also that aspect. But yeah, it's been hard to come back from that and feel like I want to explore because I don't want to take in repercussions in a way.
Right, because even without exploring, you sometimes get repercussions. I mean, even with the women stuff, I know you have that freedom to date women independently, but there's also been instances where James has become jealous of you connecting with other women. So I feel like you have that option to be open, but doesn't seem like James is really ready to do that.
Yeah, and I think that is from the past, though. I think we've come a long way from that. I've had to fight for a lot of my relationships with men, and I think I've made it a very important thing, especially to like some of my best friends and all of that. But I think he's just learning to accept that conversations don't mean anything, even if they're one-on-one. I don't have to defend myself as much. And we have made a lot of advances, not as fast as I would like, but, we have made a lot of changes that have made me more comfortable. But it's more about like, where do I want to focus energy? And because I don't necessarily feel 100% safe to explore, it doesn't seem worth it to me sometimes to even step in that direction, And I know it's something that he wants to explore and that we would like to explore together, but I think I'm holding us back in a way from that based off of past experiences. So yeah, I mean, this sounds like a really downer on our relationship. And again, it's very hard to have this conversation, but, not all relationships are good all the time. And sometimes there's a lot of work to do. But I really do hope that things work out, even if things are not as good right now, or sometimes it seems a little impossible. I also understand we have a lot that we put on our plates. We're both very passionate and loving, and hard-headed people. But we have been working through a lot of this for a long time, for our entire relationship, really. But, going through couples therapy has been very, very helpful. And the progress that I've seen with going through that has been the biggest progress I've seen yet in a much quicker amount of time. So I highly recommend it. And, things are very much up in the air right now. I've broken up with him before, and it it's hard to say if it'll happen again or not. I hope it doesn't, but I'm rooting for us. And yeah, I do love him very, very much and hope that we can turn things around. I think that we have a very, very special relationship. I think that we share so many interests and we do lift each other up in a lot of different ways. We just got to find the middle ground and the compromise that both of us are comfortable with. So lots to be learned. We're all still learning. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay, well, I think that we've talked a lot about a lot of things. I'm glad we did this because I feel like we're letting the listeners get to know us a little better and hopefully learn from our experiences and what we shared. So, yeah, this is the last episode of the second season. Very excited about all the stories that are coming up next season. But yeah, I mean, should we say what would we tell to a polycurious person? Should we do that?
Yeah, of course. That's always the question. What I always try to tell myself is that mistakes are going to happen, and that it's okay as long as you learn from them and you're open to work on them. And everything is a process. Life is a process. So it's good to just be kind to yourself and to everyone who is going through things. We all go through our things. So just be kind to each other and forgive yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I think that I'm not sure if that's something that, yeah, I guess I would tell to a polycurious person because I'm polycurious and maybe this is like the message that I want to hear right now. But one of the things that I've been reflecting on a lot lately is the value of staying present and not putting too much weight on your feelings for other people. Of course, like cherishing them and enjoying them and all of that, but just kind of letting things develop in a way that's organic and with communication and just trying not to get too much into your head about things. Don't try to like think too much about the past or the future, but just do the things that feel right to you and to your partners and or the people you are dating, and just continue to communicate throughout the process and know that things change and that the only thing that really matters is the present moment. So yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So with that, thank you guys.
And thank you so much for another incredible season. To
Yeah.
everybody who's listening, to everyone who was involved in sharing their stories. It is a very vulnerable thing to get in front of a mic and, share what you're going through, but it's really incredible and I appreciate all of you.
That's it for the second season of Polycurious. I am so curious to hear what you thought about this episode, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Our Instagram is Polycurious Podcast. Please follow us if you haven't already. And our email is polycuriouspodcast@gmail.com. We would also really appreciate it if you shared this episode. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you all on the next season.